Now that Steve Bannon has been fired, his supporters are increasingly vocal about their disdain for that decision and what they plan on doing in the future. Now, keep in mind that Steve Bannon brought along many of his supporters to go ahead and support Donald Trump, and now they're furious at Trump's decision to fire him. So let's go to some of the employees at Breitbart. Their tweets indicate that they're upset. One says that they want to go to war.
That's Joel Pollack, who works at Breitbart.
Exactly. And then Brandon Darby, who also works at Breitbart, responded to that with, "No, silly, we aren't going to war now. I really wish Trump well for the remainder of his one term," with a little winky face.
They're going to war.
Yeah. Now, that's telling, right? Especially considering the influence that Steve Bannon has over the articles that get published at Breitbart. But here is a Tea Party activist who has been very vocal in her support for Trump and how she feels now. Her name is Debbie Dooley, and she says, "I'm very upset. The deep state globalists won. They forced out Steve Bannon. I had a CNN is fake news protest scheduled for tomorrow at their headquarters in Atlanta that I'm canceling because I'm so disheartened. It's a betrayal of his base. I'll continue to support Trump and his policies, but I'll no longer be on the front lines defending him."
Man, that's a shame about that protest. It was going to have 3 to 4 people at it.
Right, and also their headquarters in Atlanta in 1987. I mean, just about everything that happens at CNN happens in DC and New York right now, including Zucker's in New York.
But there is very relevant parts of that. 2 relevant parts are the deep state globalist reference. So they are now absolutely convinced that his alt-right base, that there are huge factions of the Republican Party that are against them, and that they hate more than they even hate liberals or whatever else is going on. That's their immediate war. And so the deep state that they refer to is the generals, and then the globalists are the Jews. So sometimes they refer to them as such, meaning that is certainly an interpretation of what globalist means. Now, other people argue with that. Stephen Miller is an alt-right white nationalist, and he's Jewish, and so
Joel Pollack is an Orthodox Jew who is at Breitbart as well.
On the other hand, Ben Shapiro left Breitbart, and he's been attacked in wildly anti-Semitic ways. So but that's not that important. Globalist kind of means banker, financial elite, maybe Jewish, whatever, right? Like the powers that be that are behind the curtain, which has led to terribly anti-Semitic things in the past and led to disaster. But even if you remove the anti-Semitism out of it, it's like this idea that there's someone pulling the strings, and whoever they are, they're the ones in power, and we gotta get them, right? And again, that has led to disastrous consequences. And then the second part, if more short-term politically, is enormously important, saying that I'm going to continue to support Trump, but I'm not on the front lines anymore. And so that's how Hillary lost, when people were like, yeah, I guess I'm for Hillary, but I'm not going to do anything about it. And a lot of them stayed home. So
I'm actually shocked you're not bragging right now, because I think that what happened today will have pretty severe ramifications for Trump. Because look, his approval rating is already incredibly low. And he is making so many enemies out of allies. And this Steve Bannon component of the electorate that supported him so aggressively is now kind of starting to question things.
Right, and I agree with you, but I should say that. But there is a legitimate case to be made for the other side of that, which is there's a mellowing of the administration. The mellowing of the administration will at least mollify his opponents, Republican opponents in the Senate. The people who are coming out and saying, this just can't go on, this just can't go on. If you want legislation when we return in the fall, you have to get these, some of these bad people out of your White House. So there's a sense that that is part of what could actually work in the favor of the White House. Well, I don't think it will. I would buy that argument too.
So I thought about that, and my response to that would be, there is no mellowing of the White House when, again, the fish rots from the head down, and Trump is the head, and he is not capable of being mellow.
But what of the Pence, Mnuchin, Cohn, Tillerson, Mattis certainly? What of that crew that says why do we have to have these crazies leading our way right now. And as you get rid of the Sean Spicers, you get rid of Scaramucci, who was there for a half hour, and you get rid of Bannon, that it makes them more like what a Republican administration would be, so that then they go to Congress and there isn't this fight.
Let me agree with all of you and settle everything. So here's the parts that I agree with that I think are so important. Yes, Michael, policy-wise, it might help him in the short term where the Republican senators go, okay, we got rid of that clown Steve Bannon, and now the Republicans are back in charge.
Cenk, I want to clarify. I don't think that's right. Like, I don't think that will work. I agree with what Anna's saying. I think this will hurt.
Yeah, but it might stabilize it, and it's just a might. It might stabilize it enough to pass the giant tax cuts. That is their only goal, okay? So that's the thing that's now 50-50. Before I would have said they're definitely gonna pass the giant tax cuts and then Trump will be gone. Now he's so wildly unstable, the fish rots so far down that they might not be able to do that, and they want to do that so badly, and they all agree to that. And that's why Cohn's there in the first place, the Mnuchin's of the world, and all the Republican senators, they want those tax cuts, and all their donors agree. Everyone wants those tax cuts. So now they're back on course for maybe at least executing that, and then see what happens to Trump. But in terms of electoral politics, this is the beginning of a death knell for the Republican Party. So, because what Trump should have done is he should have had a plan. And okay, who am I gonna side with? Or what delicate balance am I gonna pull off here? Where I bring in the previous and the establishment guys, and I need their help in getting those policies passed in the Senate, but I'm going to appeal to the alt-right to get my electoral wins, and every once in a while intimidate the Mitch McConnells and the Jeff Flakes of the world, because I have the electoral base to be able to do that. Now we know, and I told you from day one, that Trump is not smart enough to do that. He's never balanced anything in his life. He just goes straight in one direction, and usually it's towards a brick wall. So now, given that he has no ability to balance anything, he should have at least picked one side. And so he couldn't make up his mind, so he fired the establishment side, Reince Priebus, Sean Spicer, so much. Then he brought in his own guys, Scaramucci, and then fired them. And then the alt-right guys, and he fired them. Because he's a clown. He doesn't know what he's doing, so now he's in no man's land.
So again, making enemies out of allies, and those allies have their own supporters. And this quote, I think, is pretty important. It's an unnamed individual who spoke to the Hill, but he or she, I'm guessing he, is a huge Bannon supporter. And here's what this person had to say. Steve's allies in the populist nationalist movement are ready to ride to the gates of hell with him against the West Wing Democrats and globalists like National Security Aide Dina Powell, Jared Kushner, Ivanka Trump, Gary Cohn, and HR McMaster. He continues to say they should all be very worried that their efforts to undermine the president will be exposed. If they think that's what's happened with Steve is rough, wait until they see what he does outside the White House.
Yes, and Kurt Bardella, who used to also work at Breitbart, today wrote that he will, quote, Bannon will, quote, try to bring everything crashing down, and he will feel liberated now, and he will likely relentlessly attack Mitch McConnell, Paul Ryan, along with all the people that Anna just named inside the White House.
Also, it may become very difficult for the American prospect. They're going to wake up to a lot every morning, in a lot of incoming from Steve Bannon.
So it'll be, now we go to a new stage now. So my guess as to how this will evolve is in keeping with what I've said so far. Now he's opened up a new line of attack and against himself, Trump has. And so alt-right will now be attacking his administration. So he'll start to lose more and more Republicans as we go along. And a lot of Republicans had already turned on him. Matt Drudge has in a lot of ways turned on him, which is surprising. Some Republicans turned on him when he went after Jeff Sessions. So now that's beginning to erode a little bit. He's still holding his voters. Remember the focus group we talked about earlier in the week? 25 out of 25 would still vote for him. But now his strong support has gone down from the 70s down to 59% and still dropping. And now it'll drop a little bit further because they care more about this than any liberal position, whether the liberals are mad with him or CNN's mad at him or moderates are mad at him. And then eventually when Trump goes, and I think he most certainly will, then you've got Pence left. And then the Republicans are super screwed because then the alt-right has gone, the Trump voters are gone, and all they have is establishment Republicans left. And when you just have the establishment left, ask Hillary Clinton how that turns out in a party. So if the left has two brain cells to rub together, and by that I mean the establishment Democrats, which they largely don't, but that's okay. We could beat them in the primaries. And the left goes populist, it is going to be a landslide. For the establishment Republicans cutting off their nose here, whether it's to spite their face or not, and throwing away their populist base, electorally will be a disaster for them. And so this is great news for the rest of the country. Help us build independent media together. TYTnetwork.com/join.